Hello, I'm Nicole Hergarten, Executive Director at the Koller Institute of Private Equity at London Business School. And I'm delighted to have with me Bridget Walsh, who is a partner and head of private equity UK and Ireland at EY. So thank you very much for coming to our event, and I think the panel discussion was really excellent. And getting into this big discussion around, so what is the impact of globalization on the private equity industry? So maybe if you want to tell us a bit your perspective on this question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Nicole. I agree. It was a great, vibrant panel to be part of today. And yes, I see the industry increasingly globalizing, and I think that's a trend that's set to continue. You know, when I look at our business at EY, when we see an asset coming up for sale, 5 years ago, there might have been a short list of 8 private equity funds that we could name who would be interested in it. Today, it's a very long list. It could be 20. And within that, you'll have Middle Eastern funds, Canadian funds, and Chinese funds. And I suppose it was brought to life to me 1 month last November. I ended up visiting China and meeting some of the large funds there. Some of those funds had $5–10 billion to invest, and they were co-investing with a number of the European funds that we advise, and also coming directly into some of the deals in Europe. And when we went to China to visit those funds, we came with a list of assets that we knew were coming to market, and it was just amazing how up to speed those Chinese funds were on what was happening in Europe. And also we found the same. I was in Canada later that month, and we found that the Canadian funds, again, were looking at the same assets in Europe, again, often co-investing with the European funds and increasingly coming directly into those assets. So I wanted to go back to my office and draw a spider diagram of just how globally interconnected at both the investor level and the investee level this industry has become.
So how do you think the GPs and LPs are adjusting to this kind of globalization?
I think it's still a big change, because at the GP level, what we are finding certainly in Europe is if a good asset is coming to market, it's becoming extremely competitive, because you, again, don't just have the usual players competing to win those assets. You've got the global money coming in. So increasingly the GPs on the ground in Europe, the more traditional ones, are having to be much more agile, working with corporates to find a deal before it comes to market, and you get these huge auctions that are pushing prices up. And also GPs becoming very selective about which geographies they're looking at to attract the LPs in. The LPs, again, are very much looking at the geographic spread of which funds they put their money in and what exposure they get via that. But increasingly, we're seeing a trend of some of the larger, particularly Canadian funds, now coming and investing directly into Europe and other geographies. So it's an increasingly changing landscape.
And a very fascinating topic. So thank you very much, Bridget, for coming.
Thank you.